Back again, another week. This week, the NBA wrapped up its championship. The Bucks win, beat the Suns in 6. Congrats to the fans of the Milwaukee Bucks. Baseball's still happening. Football hasn't started yet, but we had one super interesting thing happen in the world of hockey. The NHL expanded to its 32nd team, 30th team, whatever it is. I think it's the 32nd team, the Seattle Kraken. So here we are. I've brought back on behind the scenes guy and friend of the show, Mathew Slaunwhite. Matt, welcome back on. It's been a while since you've been on.
Yeah, it's been a while. Thanks for having me back. Excited to talk about this big change in the NHL. But glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And for those that don't know, Matt still works with the podcast. He's just more behind the scenes doing the graphic work and some of the promotional stuff. But we're both huge hockey fans, and this is one of those instances that doesn't roll around too often. So first, I just want to get your thoughts on the expansion draft process. I know that you were unspoiled, but I was spoiled. So you had a true experience of what the expansion draft was supposed to look like. So what did you think?
Yeah, so I didn't realize that the leaked video had come out. So I scrambled at about 5 minutes to 9 to get the draft on and start watching, and got to see everything kind of start to finish of how they actually did it, and who they were picking. So I still had the suspense of whether or not Carey was going. So it was an interesting watch. I'm glad that I got to watch it unspoiled, to be honest. Made it a little bit more enjoyable, I think, to watch, as many fans watching are stressed out and on the edge of their seat when they hear their team name announced and wondering what's about to happen.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the spoiled part for me, was that I really was hoping for like the whole event atmosphere to kind of happen. And it was still a great show. I think they really did a great job promoting the heck out of what was going on. Although the ESPN guys were a little off. I want to say they weren't sure. You could tell they're new to hockey. But overall, I thought the whole show was a good show. How'd you feel about the actual presentation of the draft versus maybe what you thought of the Vegas draft?
um, I don't fully recall the Vegas one, to be honest, but one thing, as obviously we haven't lived through a crazy amount of expansion drafts, especially in today's era of technology and social media and everything, how everything is so forefront and easy to see. I think they did a good job bringing hockey into a city that hasn't seen the NHL. It's one thing when Atlanta switched up to Winnipeg. It was going back to a hockey town. You don't need to sell the community on the fact of hockey. So how they involve the community and what Seattle has to offer, I believe they did a good job of letting everyone know what Seattle is, what kind of livelihood, like they incorporated the ocean and the sea theme, obviously Kraken, so the ocean theme's got to be there. So I believe they did a good job of involving the community. It was nice to see they brought it looked like kind of the main foreman from the construction project for the arena out. They did the scene at the aquarium. They did it down at the fish market with tossing the fish and stuff. Like, as we chuckling, yes, some of it's corny as hell. It was, but they did a good job of incorporating Seattle and welcoming Seattle into the NHL, in my opinion, and putting their spin on things. It was a fun event to watch, gave you some chuckles. I like that they incorporated one of the local minor hockey associations, especially the female aspect that doesn't always get the light that they deserve. in minor hockey and hockey in general. So it was nice that they incorporated that. Bringing out the Macklemore, local guy, bringing out the midfielder from um, what is it, Seattle
Sounders.
Sounders or
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
Um, bring those, so they did a good job of incorporating everything. I felt like, and based on what I've seen so far, them showing the bar and just the fans that were there, I was kind of in awe when they did one of the zoom outs. I thought it was like a relatively small like terrace area at first that they held this, and then they zoomed out at one point, and I'm like, crap, that's like concert level
Yeah.
size
They
fans that they're like, the town wants this. They're ready for it.
Well, they've been sports starved on a national scale for a while. The Sounders, no, and there's no disrespect to the Sounders who are doing everything they can to, bring sport back. But basketball was really their go-to. They have football there. They haven't had hockey, and it's just a sport city. I think it's a good market to be in as well. And they really showcased that last night with the Vegas draft. It was very strict and stringent. They were in the one arena. Everything looked that way. But I think that they did a really good job of going to different landmarks. They went to the Space Needle. They had Marshawn Lynch announcing Callie Yancroc, which is really funny because he wasn't very good at it. So we called him Boy Callie, which I appreciate. But Marshawn was fun. They had, like you said, Macklemore came out. They had a couple of guys from the Seahawks. And overall, I was okay with the process, even though the insiders spoiled the names for me. I thought that it was still good. And you never know, like, even though the insiders may have all the deals, we weren't sure if deals were being announced that day or, if there's anything that had happened. So I thought overall it was a good show. Like you said, it's you can tell that they're into it already. And the roster that they put together is uh, interesting. They passed on some big names, Matt. There was an opportunity to take Vladimir Tarasenko. There was an opportunity to take Carey Price. They passed on those guys, instead opting for salary cap space and youth. So I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the players that I guess are highlights. And I'm going to start with a current Cup champion, Yanni Gord. What do you think of the Yanni Gord pick from Tampa? They had a couple of options, and I think Yanni Gord might be he's not overly young. I mean, he's basically in his prime. He's 29.
Yeah, I think Yanni Gore was a great pick. I know a fair bit of people were talking about him early on. Obviously, there's a Tampa could only protect so many people, and obviously they're running into their cap issues. So someone had to be left unprotected. And I think Yanni Gord is somewhat in the shadows a lot of the time through the last few years with how many big names are on Tampa. I think he brings a lot to the team. Obviously, you have someone with cup experience coming to the team. He's 29, so he just went through that awkward young 20s, mid 20s stage of being in the NHL and what that's going to be where where they, like you said, they did draft such a young team. It gives them someone to look up to without being really okay. When you have you have some of the older guys that are mid to high 30s, it's been a while since they went through. They didn't go through their young 20s with the pressure of social media added to being a young star in the NHL at that age. And obviously the media is going to be all over them. So I think Yanni Gord brings a lot of on ice presence, but I love the dressing room guys and what someone can do for the younger guys as a mentor and someone to lean on. And I think Yanni Gord brings a lot of that to the dressing room.
He reminds me a lot of what William Karlsson ended up being for Vegas, which is a guy that is kind of overshadowed where he was, didn't really have an opportunity, and now he's going to be put squarely in the spotlight because, to be honest, there's not a ton of like high end skill guys on this team, and Yanni Gord is a skill guy. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking 187 points, 80 goals, 107 assists in his 310 games. So he scores, he can score, he can make plays, but he's only like in 2021 he played 56 games and had 36 points. And that's compared to the 2020 season where he played 70 games and had 30 points. So he's actually improving. He's getting better as he goes along. His career high was his second year, like full year in the league. He played 82 games and had 64 points. And I see him being kind of a 60-point guy going forward for this Kraken team. But like you said, the locker room stuff is pretty important. Speaking of locker room, on the back end, they grabbed a young, up and coming, super high ceiling defenseman in Vince Dunn from St. Louis. Now, I think this pick is going to get overlooked by a lot of the mainstream. Um, Vince Dunn's got 4 seasons in the NHL at this point, and he is absolutely crushing in terms of being a big bruising defender, but he's also a solid locker room guy. He does everything that needs to be done on the back end. What was your thoughts of the Vince Dunn pick?
I think Vince Dunn was, like you said, it's not going to get that attention that he truly deserves, um, because he is that kind of younger guy. With that, you look at that 4 years. Look at the 4 years that he's been in the league and what he's experienced in that.
Yeah,
Um, he again back to the locker room. He's super well respected. He's a well loved guy around the league. Um, he's big on different social media platforms, so he's great at interacting with the fans, which is, I think, one of the things you truly need in an expansion draft. I think the crowd that was there goes to show how involved the city wants to be. But you need someone that is going to love the fans and interact with the fans to help build the franchise. Because let's be honest, it's not like you're going to win your first. You're not going to win 5 cups your first 5 years and all of a sudden have an amazing fan base. It's just not going to happen. But a guy like that helps cement a strong relationship early on with the fans. And with this young core group that they have, I think he'll be a good asset amongst the team.
he's offensively gifted, and you can't overstate that on the back end. He's not a defensive liability, but I mean, he's a pretty high round pick. He's the second round 26 pick. He's 56th overall in 2015, and I think that he's shown that he's got the capability of being one of those guys that is going to step out of his. I don't want to say shell because I don't think that he's in a shell necessarily, but I think you're going to see him step to the forefront and be kind of a fan favorite. Speaking of fan favorites, this is a guy that I think is not going to do a lot of the on the ice stuff. When we looked at like the overall roster, and I looked at it a lot, I see guys that are basically have very minimal experience in the NHL. This is not that guy. This guy's been around for a while, and I'm talking about Brandon Tanev. And the reason I bring up Brandon Tanev is I think that when you establish a new franchise, it's important to have a couple of things. There's got to be a couple of names that people recognize immediately. Like you have to have names that you can put on the back of jerseys. Giordano, Eberle, who we're going to get to, both names you can put on the back of jerseys. But you've got to have those lunch pail type guys, those go to work guys that just become fan favorites. And we have Gallagher in Montreal is that guy. How many people love Gally? He's always the get in the dirty areas. And Brandon Tanev, I think, is that guy and is going to be that guy for the Kraken. I think he's one of the people that is going to put on really well for this team. I don't think he's going to score you a ton of goals. I don't think he's going to be like a superstar, but I think he's going to become an early fan favorite. What do you think about the Tanev pickup?
Uh, yeah, similar to what you said, Tanev is a solid pick. I think one of the first things on the list need to be getting him a new mugshot there, or if he can reenact it with the right colors. Um, he he's going to be an exciting player for a new market to watch. Um, One of the biggest draws that always makes people enjoy watching hockey is the big hits, the big moments, and he he's a body guy. He's going to make you earn every inch of ice out there. So when he starts laying guys into those brand new boards in Seattle, that place is going to be rocking, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that's put out on the ice when you need that momentum shift. So you need you need your puck guys that are going to dance around with the puck and everything, but you need your body guys that are going to shut people down and use that body. And I think Tanev brings that big time to this team.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's when you're starting a new franchise, you're not going to get the instant credibility. You don't have history. You don't have any of that other stuff. I mean, you mentioned earlier when Winnipeg returned to Winnipeg, they're already a hockey town. They already have hockey history. They already know players. There's already people with former Jet players on. There's already Teemu Selanne jerseys. They already have that. The first jerseys that are going out the door for these guys are going to be your big superstars, but your first fan favorites are going to be the ones that really drive butts to seats here. And especially with the way this team is constructed, I'm not seeing a ton of. Um, I'm not seeing a ton of like superstar power. You're going to see Yanni Gore jerseys. You're probably going to see um, the next guy that I'm going to talk about, Jordan Eberle. But I don't know if you're going to see, you know, you're not going to see Chowalski jerseys in the stands right away.
No.
You know, it's going to take some time. So I just look at this as an opportunity for them to use a grit guy to drive some excitement for a team that's brand new. That's brand new. Um, Speaking of driving excitement, um, the 2008 22nd overall pick, Jordan Eberle, is now a Seattle Kraken. And I think he's got to be in conversation for the captaincy here. I don't know how you feel about this. Eberle's probably the most notable guy on this team. I know Giordano's a captain. I know there's, you know, Vitek Vanacek is a reasonably young goalie that people were pretty pumped on. I know Yanni Gord is got superstar potential, but Eberle's established as a like solid commodity, I think, and I think he's got to be in the running for captain. What do you think about Eberle? Do you think he's got a chance to wear the C for this team?
I'd look at him more probably for an A. It's always tough to say, obviously, from our perspective, because we never know truly what what a
What
guy
goes
is
on in
like
the
in the
room?
what
Yeah,
goes on in the room, and there's always, as a coach of minor hockey, there's always a misconception that letters go to the most talented. Um, but wearing a letter is so much more than that at any level of hockey, and it's who can stay positive for you, who's vocal, who can get the boys riled up, who can be that momentum switcher, that voice of reason. And Everly's a little bit of an awkward guy, so I don't know if that's him in the dressing room, and I don't mean awkward in a bad way or anything like that. I just think that's kind of his personality. So I
yeah,
could see him being a secondary guy to that. I really don't know what the Kraken's goal is, from a captain or leader. Do they? Because there's a few different ways you can go. You can go with the young guy and hope he's with you for the next 5 to 7 years, and he wears the C for all of that, and then pass it on to the next guy when he leaves or gets traded? Or do you go with the old time guy that's been around like Giordano and give him the C right off the hop? So there's a lot of different options that they have there. But as a whole, what Eberle can bring to the team, I think it was probably a super easy pick in my opinion when you see his name on the table. Being able to grab him, he knows what it's like playing on the West Coast there.
yeah,
Uh, I think I think he's going to bring a lot to this team. Eberle is one of those guys that he. I don't want to say that he's been in the shadows because he's not in the shadows, but there's just something about him that that I always feel like he deserves more respect than what he's getting. Uh, I'm interested to see how he performs here, and what the Kraken brings forward, because I think his ceiling is extremely high on this team.
He's got almost 800 career games. Like, I mean, the guy's got 779 career games. He's got 551 points. He's probably the most established in terms of points, but he's also probably one of the more established in terms of that side. The only other guy that kind of fits the mold and who I think will likely end up with the C is the last guy that I'm going to bring up. I don't know if you've got anybody else. Is Mark Giordano. Uh, like he's like 41 games short of 1,000 games. He's 949 games, 759 penalty minutes. He's not really a big penalty guy, but he's got 500 points, 510. Um, but he's 37. He's definitely on the lower end of on the out of his career, not on the upswing. So again, it's that question of, do you give the C to a guy who um, can help mentor the young guys early on, or do you give the C to a guy who you are hoping grows into it? Like, is Yanni Gord your captain and then you grow into that, or is Giordano your captain for the first few years while you get your feet wet and you draft and develop a guy who you want to be your next big thing?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big question up in the air. Really, is what mentality it is that the Kraken are going to have going forward. Someone that maybe is a great fit for a captain may come in and show up as camp. Maybe they're not the guy that is a best leader of being on a brand new team, because obviously it's a lot different than going to an established team that needs a captain versus a brand new team. All these guys are in the exact same position of starting with a brand new team. I like how they did primarily focus on young guys and then brought in a vet like Giordano to bring kind of that compass in a storm to help weather it and talk with experience. I think he has a good story. He made a good joke about it last night of just being like, "Hey, thanks for finally letting me be drafted," and it just kind of goes to show kind of who he is. He's humbled. He respects the position that he's in, and he's had to work for what he has. Like, would you say 949 games played?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so like 949 games played, and you weren't even drafted. That's very impressive. So that grit and that kind of respect and dedication that has to take to overcome not being drafted and then to go on and play 15 years in the NHL. I think that brings a his resume to be captain on that team is very large.
yeah.
And I think he would be a great fit to help mentor and bring these young guys in as they navigate this crazy journey for the next little while. Because there's not many guys in the league that can say that they're going through what these guys are going through. So
Yeah.
I think he'd be a good option to help lead that team.
Most of the defensemen they picked up were more veteran guys. They had a couple of young guys for sure, but like if you're looking at the majority of the defensemen that they grabbed, outside of Giordano, most of them are in their 30s, I believe, or close to. A lot of the forwards are younger, much younger, which makes a ton of sense. You're trying to anchor your back end. Someone that I think has a lot of potential for upside that we didn't bring up is Eunice Donskoy.
Yeah.
Huge opportunity for him. They grabbed a whole bunch of really young guys that I'm interested to see what happens. You know, Alexander True. Um, you know, I mean, Morgan Geeky's young. There's a bunch of guys that are really like Nathan Bastian is young. Appleton's young. These guys all have opportunities now in front of them with a team where they weren't necessarily thinking they were going to be. I mean, when these guys were drafted, they thought, all right, well, this is my shot. Now I got to make the most of it. And probably we're looking at the depth chart a whole lot differently going into the off season, a lot of these guys were playing on teams that were eliminated from the playoffs or not in playoff contention. So I can't imagine being, um, Chowalski, who I'll make fun of again because Detroit. We looked at the roster earlier. Who are you protecting? It really didn't matter. Um, you look at a guy like that who was probably looking at the roster and thinking, "All right, I don't know what I have to do to get up here, but I'm going to work on it." And now he's got a completely different outlook. So it's going to be interesting going forward. Are you? What's the one thing you're most looking forward to with this team? I think on my end, it's probably seeing how the fans react to, not just first wins, but like the players themselves, how they are received in a new market.
Um, I think things are going to be received really well here. I think last night is. Um, I'm sorry if you're listening to this not on Thursday because it's going to be posted later on
Hmm.
Wednesday night when you're watching the expansion draft. I think the crowd's going to be excited. One thing I'm looking forward to is having two brothers on the team. I think that's
Yeah,
always a unique aspect. You never know what chemistry that can possibly bring. Um, they're not too far from a team that had two brothers, and you look at the careers that they had. So you never know when chemistry like that is brought together, how fun that can be. So I'm excited for that. Overall, um, this team is going to be. They pick guys that are the hard workers. They didn't go for the guys that, and no disrespect, but I think this is why they stayed away from Tarasenko.
sure.
They went for guys that want to fight for their position. They respect the reasons why they're here. They're not expecting to just instantly go out there and make the first line or anything like that. Um, where nothing against Tarasenko, but sometimes the impression that I get from him is that he assumes that he should be in certain situations and doesn't always actually put in the work to earn those positions. So,
Yeah.
um, and I find that's somewhat common with some of the Euros that come over, as we've seen in the NHL before. So, um,
Happens with a
I
lot of high skill guys.
yeah
Just
yeah
in general,
they
like, yeah, the higher the skill, the more, I don't want to say entitled. I'm not here to like, you know, shit on someone here, but like Tarasenko would have come in there and expected the King's treatment, and I don't think they want that. I think they're looking. Remember what I mentioned earlier about Tanev being blue collar? I think
yep.
that's what they want. They want a lunch pail team.
And I think that's what that market is. That market's not looking for obviously everyone wants a sniper and everything like that, but they're not looking for that one guy to go out there and dance around with the puck and deke around a bunch of guys and score a fancy goal. I think this market, from the impression that I got watching last night and what Seattle is all about, is it's surrounded by a lot of blue collar communities. Obviously, Seattle has its upper class and everything, but overall, it's a blue collar area. It's built on fishing communities. Fishing communities are blue collar, as blue collar as it can possibly get.
Yeah.
So I think having blue collar guys in which they primarily drafted, going back to Giordano, like they picked guys that want to fight to be there. They don't assume that they deserve anything, and they work for everything they got. So I think this lineup's going to be interesting. One thing we kind of skipped over, um, and I'm not sure if you plan on going to, but I look forward to the goaltending situation of this team. I think it's very interesting and puts guys. Joey Decord was not in a good situation. Anyone that had to wear that logo in the last couple of years has not been in a good situation coming from Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to what he can bring to this team. I believe he has a lot of potential in being out there
Hmm.
with a new team and everything. So in Drieger, I think Drieger is the other one. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Uh,
Dreger and Vanacek are both potential starting caliber goaltenders. I think they have three goalies that can really compete for that like
yeah,
day one job.
Yeah. So then, and again, it goes to earning that spot. So you're gonna have three guys truly battling it out
Yeah,
for that spot, for that 1 and 2 slot. The third one maybe being rotated through every once in a while.
yeah.
Um, I I think this team is built on kind of that grit and just that hard nosed. We want to earn what we got. We respect the position we're in. We want to earn it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. It would not be fair to let you go without talking about some Montreal Canadian news, given that we are both Habs fans. Apparently today, in Marc Bergevin's media availability, he mentioned that Weber is very likely to miss the entire season, and apparently, and this is according to Sportsnet, so I don't know if this is like, I'm assuming it's reasonably factual, that he may be done for his career. Just some quick thoughts on what losing Weber means to this team, but also, as a human, how does it feel? We're going through that's tough, man. Like to be told your career is over, and he's a guy that I think is a go to work every day and loves to do it.
Yeah, seeing the quote of someone like Weber possibly, let alone not playing this season, and then to hear possibly may have played his last NHL games this past year. Obviously went on an incredible run and a great last year, if it is his last year. But it's kind of one of those gut punch news. Obviously, you never want to see a guy play through injuries to the point where then their quality of life after the game is not there. And obviously, Weber is in tough shape. Um, the one good thing is Bergeron's not a doctor. So I'm hoping in the back of my mind that he's wrong and maybe Weber's fixable and can still play, because obviously my bias as a Habs fan is that you don't want to miss that guy. That's it's a guy that you cannot technically replace. Yes, is there other defensemen better or just as good in the NHL? Yes, but Weber's a class act. Um, Guys like him only come around every once in a while. I'd really like to see him be able to put the skates on again this year, whether it be for a game, but I'd like to see him wrap up with a home game in Montreal. Not that he's been here for a crazy long time, but I think it'd be a nice send off with the fans.
Yeah.
Was it this year that he had his 1,000 games during COVID?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a nice tribute and everything for that. So he's hit some big milestones with Montreal. Um, if we lose him, it'll definitely be detrimental to the back end. Is there pieces in place to help kind of slide in? I think so. But a guy like him, again, like I said earlier, I'm a big dressing room guy. Shea Weber has a big presence in the dressing room.
That's why they
Um,
brought him in. They
yeah,
brought him in instead of
he's
PK because PK was not a dressing room guy.
well,
And I'll tell you, I'll say this right here. When the deal happened, I was sad because I love PK on the ice. PK on the ice is fun to watch. He does spinoramas, and when he loses the puck, you want to curse him out. But when he hits it, it's incredible. He's a fast skater, and he had a crazy shot. So you love PK. He was also young and had lots of like exuberance and really wanted to do well with the team. So all of those things are positives. I don't want to take anything away from PK, but the word on the street was that PK wasn't great as a locker room guy. And Shea Weber came in and it was business. From day one, it was business, and you saw a shift in that Montreal Canadiens team and locker room in the way they handled everything. Weber was more like Carey Price. And I think that when your two biggest vets are like, you know, listen, we got to get the work done, we got to get the job done. And they're the guys that are leading that charge. I think it says something. You can still have guys that are heartbeat guys like Gallagher, but I think that it's important to have that leadership. And I think anyone that thought that the Weber deal was a bad deal, whether it because of the contract or otherwise, wasn't looking at this from a Montreal Canadiens lens. They were looking at it from a different fan bases, organizations lens for sure. Not to name any fan bases, Leafs.
no, it definitely changes things up having him there. and it was just exciting being able to watch them this playoffs. Like you and I obviously talked many times through the playoffs, but like the people calling the defensive core for Montreal, the Clydesdales, like I don't care who you are, when you're skating in on Petrie, Sherratt, Weber, you have any combo of them out there, it's intimidating. You're skating in on Sherratt and Weber, and you're like, all right, which one of them is going to pound me into the boards?
Yeah.
Like it's if you say it's not in your mind, it's on your mind. You're
Well, it looks like we had a
as I
bit
was
of
saying,
technical difficulties there, Matt. So you want to pick back up off where you left off, man?
yeah. So we're somewhat guessing on where we. FYI, it is storming around here.
Yeah.
uh, when you're coming in on guys like that, obviously it's intimidating when you have a duo like Sherratt and Weber, or Weber and Petrie, or whatever the combo is. When you have a presence like that, and you're constantly able to ice one of those bodies, and you take Weber out of that mix, it definitely does impact the lineup. I think Montreal has some nice things in place to help slide that in, but not a direct replacement. Um, if he retires, does salary cap help the team? 100%. It definitely frees up some
Also,
dollars to move
hurts
things around.
Nashville. Hurts Nashville badly if he retires.
Do they eat? Do
Yeah,
they
the
eat some of it?
yeah, the cap recapture is like $24 million to Nashville.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not
so
fun. It's not fun if he retires. If he goes on LTIR, it's different. But if he retires, the cap recapture is rough for Nashville. So
yeah.
hopefully we have some better news. But unfortunately, right now it doesn't look very promising for Weber. And Price apparently has an injury. So we'll see. This could be a fun season for Montreal Canadiens fans. It's going to be an interesting
Yeah.
off season for sure. Thanks for jumping on, Matt. I appreciate you, taking some time out to talk expansion draft.
No problem. Thanks again for having me. Thanks to everyone for hanging around and listening to us yammer on about hockey. We love talking, so thank you.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share the video with your friends. We'll be talking soon. Thanks for watching.